Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very happy to have all of you here. We are being joined by our wonderful host today, Jillian Scanlon. She is our Director of Infant Toddler Mental Health here at Early Care and Learning Council. And she's going to be talking to us today about connection in a world that is increasingly more isolated. So we're very appreciative to have her here today and to have all of you here today. And I will now hand it over to Jillian.
Hello, Learning Cafe community. I'm really thrilled to be with you all today and talk about this important topic, the importance of connection and why relationships matter. So I'm sharing my screen. Let me know, can you all see that? Go ahead and thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. So let's get going. This is a conversation about connection. This is a conversation about relationships. And let's get your chatting fingers warmed up. I want to know, what is something you like to do with someone you feel really connected to? We'll see if that's coming alive there. There we go. Yeah, thank you for getting that going. Yes, right? And I'll be honest and say, I think when I thought of this question, I was thinking of a friend, but it could be a neighbor, it could be a sibling, it could be a grandparent. And we're going to talk about human connection today, but honestly, it could be a dog or a cat. Just somebody you spend time with and you feel really seen and valued. Yeah, absolutely. You're doing so awesome already. So I chose this content specifically for this community and specifically for today. Today is a really significant day for many of us. And I think spending 60 minutes focusing on how much we all really matter to each other is a good way to honor this date. And I hope you all feel the same. So I did compile this presentation. It's mine, but the source information is not. And so I just want to acknowledge the professionals, the experts, the researchers that created the content that made this presentation possible. Instead of a reference page or a citations page, I've created actually a resource page that Naya will share with you all after this presentation, after our meeting today. And that resource page is direct links. So any article I used, any web page I used, you're going to click on that link. It's going to take you directly to it. I have it kind of chunked based on sections of the content. And that's for transparency. It's for accessibility. And it's also this hope I have that something today is going to light up inside you. It's going to be really meaningful for you, for your community, for your work, for your world. And after I've disappeared into the mist and this presentation is over, you're going to be able to utilize it in ways that are super important to you and your work. And so, this conversation continues with or without me. So that's one of those things I wanted to make sure you knew before we started. The other thing I wanted to share is this content was created with my perspective, my lens, my experiences, and so it's limited. And this is a general topic for today. So there are more deeper conversations to have for those who are neurodivergent, for all the cultural implications that are associated with a topic like this. And please reach out to me after this conversation is over. I would love to have more conversations with all of you and dive deeply into those other aspects, that we just don't have time for over lunch today. So please invite me into those spaces. I want to be with you and continue the conversation. Anytime I get asked to host a space like this, I feel so privileged, honestly, and so humbled and really grateful for the teachers, the mentors, the colleagues, the children, the families, the providers that have taught me so much that I hope to bring to all of you today. And also, I have to thank ECLC for trusting me with this very precious space, especially Tracy, Laura, Naya, Jesse, and Allison, who helped refine this presentation and just did all of this stuff behind the scenes that makes a learning cafe possible. So thank you. All right, objectives. The teacher in me says we got to do objectives. We have to deepen the how. We have to understand the why. And today they're pretty light, right? We're going to recognize the importance of connection, and we're going to think about ourselves and our experience of connection in the world. I'm going to ask you to be authentic, and so I'm going to bring a little bit of my authentic self, the stuff that isn't on my bio, into this space. This is a picture of me and my daughter when she was 4 months old. I didn't have a linear path to parenting, and this picture sort of represents what I thought parenting was going to be like. And so I feel obligated to tell you that this human refused to use utensils at dinner last night and said, "How could you?" when I asked her to put shoes on for school today. So it's definitely a spectrum. This picture is also really meaningful to me. I'm at my mother's house for this photo, which was my grandmother's house, which was my great grandparents' house. My sister took this picture, and my other older sisters are actually in the room behind me. At this stage in my life, I think of myself as someone who was raised in a matriarchy, a lot of powerful women lifting each other up, holding each other accountable. Like many of you, I really love other people's children. And so this photo kind of represents some of the babies I first loved and who are deeply a piece of who I am today. My nieces and nephew, and now my great nieces, they gather in this place to feel connected, to feel seen, to feel valued. This picture also, my spouse and I took a great nap at this location. And sometimes when life is really hard, we look at each other and we're like, remember that nap we took in 2008? Gosh, it was so good. Will we ever nap like that again? I have some old friends that gather at this place, and we reminisce about times when we could move and our bodies wouldn't creak. For those of you not in this stage of life, there will come a time you will sneeze and your back will crack. So enjoy the silence of your movements. This photo also represents, someone I've lost and that I long for. My dad in particular, who every 4th of July, very gleefully, set off hundreds of illegal fireworks with no regard for anyone's personal property. So that's just a little bit about connection and relationships for me outside that bio that comes with a flyer. And I chose this picture for you all today, but I'm wondering what picture you might choose. What photo from your camera roll you would pop up that would tell the story of your relationships and your connections. I could do this tomorrow or next week or in 6 months. I might choose a different one. But I'm just curious, as you're flipping through your camera roll, if there's anything that kind of sings to you the story of your connections and your relationships. So those of you who have been with me before knew this slide was coming. Yes, yes, yes. All right, we need 90 seconds before we get to work. This is your lunchtime. This is your time. Maybe you're driving. Maybe you've got AirPods in and you're folding laundry. Maybe you're shredding paper. I don't know what you're doing. But I just want to take 90 quick seconds. And I'm not going to prescribe. Breathe, count, body scan, stretch. Don't doom scroll. That's always what I say. And if you hate this pause, and if you're like, come on, lady, just get to it. Just spend 90 seconds, focusing on that feeling you have when you're with someone who loves you and who you love. So I'm going to watch the clock. That's my job. So take this 90 seconds, turn inward, be really good to yourself, and I'll be waiting for you. Your 90 seconds starts now. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get to work. All right. Click. There we go. Here's the importance of connection, why relationships matter. We talk about this topic a lot in early childhood. Let me get my mouse back where it belongs. We talk about attachment, we talk about attunement, we might talk about co-regulation, talk about social emotional development. Those are all language we use in this field. But I'm curious, how do you define connection when you think about it, or if someone were to ask you what that means to you? Are there other words I'm missing? Get those chatting fingers warmed back up. You had a nice break, so go ahead and use that chat. Mm, learning and teaching. Yeah, I love that answer. Forming bonds, seeing and being seen. Some infant mental health folks in the house. I can see your language out there. To turn towards present, power of laughter. Yeah, absolutely. A warm feeling, mutual safety. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many ways to think about this. And if someone is sort of saying, why on earth are you spending lunchtime on a presentation? You can go ahead and say it's life and death. That's right. Go ahead and weaponize this slide to justify how you spend your time if you need to. But we're getting into the real content now. And this is Dr. Juliana Holt-Lundstad, and she studies social connection, and she studies mortality risk and what the connection is between the two. So being dramatic, saying it's life and death, that's really her research. What does it mean when people are isolated and lonely, and how does it impact their lives? Not just the quality, but the quantity of life. And I mentioned that resource page. She's the first person on it. And these slides are for anyone to use. So I didn't steal them. Well, I mean, I stole them, but you can steal them too. So if you want to have a longer conversation with others around just how significant this is, take just 10 seconds and look at some of the content on this slide. It really speaks to the importance of connection and that it's so much bigger, than just something that 0 to 5 should be thinking and feeling about and making plans for. I want to turn us towards the biology of connection, and you're going to be using the chat again soon, so stay with me. We're going to play together today. But how many of you, and I'm sure a few of you have heard this, some version of this phrase, babies are wired for connection? We say that, right? Babies are wired for connection. They come into the world looking for connections, right? Yeah, we've heard that in some phrasing or another. That this is part of how people are born. Well, anthropologists say that we are all hardwired for connection. And Alan Shore tells us that we're hardwired for relationships throughout our lifespan. This isn't something that we do for young children and then never do again, or a need that we grow out of. Development is a lifelong process. And so this really speaks to that. There's a little bit of research where the anthropologists are wondering, is our need for social interaction connected to the size of our brains? So animals' neocortex relating to species group size. So there's something about those larger mammals, right, needing each other in a really fundamental way. We also have people who are looking at really the development of social connection from an evolutionary standpoint. And that social need is survival, even attachment, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. This idea that it's the children whose caregivers cared about them or who went back to their caregivers. Those are the ones that survived the tigers, right? So there's this idea that it's survival, that it's our reptilian brain, that it goes all the way back. So there's something in here that isn't just about who we are now, but who we've always been. we're going to keep going with this. And now we're going to talk about the brain for just a minute. And we're going to play this little game. It's my presentation, so I got to pick the 3 parts of the brain that I wanted to highlight today. Presenter's privilege. And I'll say to you, I'm going to tell you what it's like when the brain is online. I want you to put in the chat what it looks like when this part of the brain is not working. Okay. So, oh, my little boxes are going to pop up. I've got 3 of them. So you get 3 chances. All right. Our vagus nerve comes first. Any polyvagal theorists in the house? So we're going to talk about the vagus nerve. When this nerve is working, you play, you create, right? You digest, you rest, you feel like yourself. So what happens when this part of the brain is not working properly? What do you think you look like when this part of your brain is offline? Frazzled, stress, get sick, yes. Anxious, insomnia, not connected. Can't find joy in the things you normally would. Yeah, you guys are talking now about some of our biggest symptoms of mental health, right? When this is offline, you shut down, frustrated? Absolutely. Yeah. We've got the parasympathetic nervous system coming up here too. When this is working, you heal, your mind clears, you seek connection. We were talking about those things you love to do when you're with someone you're really connected to. Think about how you might touch them or be close to them, how you might prepare for that time together with great intentionality. Yeah, when this is offline, you're right, you're isolated, you're lonely. Absolutely. You stick your head in the sand. Confused? Absolutely. All those things. We have this other part of our brain, right? Our mirror neurons. And these are key to successful interactions because they allowed us to read moods, right? Those minute expressions. And any of you who have ever worked with others in any kind of setting, so our teachers, our counselors, our social workers, our coaches, our anybody who's in those positions where you're a support person, a helping person, you mirror them and they mirror you, right? There's an aspect to that. And it's really essential sometimes for someone to feel safe, that you can breathe with them, that you can co-regulate with them. And it happens when you're really in sync. So when those mirror neurons aren't working, what do you think we look like? Yeah, conflict. Yeah, we're not reading each other's cues. Absolutely not. Tons of self-absorbed misunderstandings. Yeah. Shut down. I wish I could see you all, but yeah, you can even see like the closing of the body language that changes. Out of step. Oh, I like that. Out of step. Shut down. Right. We have some other pieces of us that are our biology that are working towards connection, and there are hormones that are coming into play here. And hormones are sneaky little suckers. If you're in a state of life where your hormones are making a lot of chaos, you know it. And if you're not, you need to like go ahead and thank the universe that you're not in that state right now. Here's some of the hormones that get the most credit, at least for connection. The first one is oxytocin. That's that famous cuddle hormone, the love hormone, right? That one gets released when we're with connection. We have another one though, right? Vasopressin. And this is about the intensity. If you think about, those middle school teenagers and the intensity with which they feel emotion, vasopressin is really important because it kind of, yes, it does flare up in those first young love moments, but it also kind of gets reinforced when we're with familiar folks. Like when you see that person you haven't seen in a long time and you remember that big feeling of affection you have or connection that you have. We have dopamine, that reward center. This is also a piece of connection, that shared smile. And this is really interesting because it really feeds a lot of what we understand about depression and anxiety and some of those really complex when we're isolating and we're not getting that reward that comes from social interactions, how that changes us. And then we have this one. Norepinephrine is really interesting because it's almost that I put this yay here, right? But it's not intensity, but it's excitement, right? And some of that's released when there's connection. And it's more than excitement. It's essential in our, with serotonin and a lot of those other feel good chemicals in our brain. But when there's connection, this really sends a message into our brain that we store. So it's like reading a familiar book. I mean, that's one of mine. I pull up a book I know I love, and it brings me back to those feelings, those places. Right. So really interesting information about how our hormones are there. I get kicked out of the IECMH club if I don't mention Bowlby. So I have to bring that into this presentation today. But we're going to talk about some theories here and attachments up there. In attachment theory, I've got a little quote from Bowlby here, and I stayed away from the baby quotes because we're really thinking about all of us, right, throughout our lives, wherever we are, and the initial relationship between self and others, and that blueprint for all future relationships. We also have social baseline theory, and I think this could speak to some of you who really want maybe a little bit more of a sociological bent on our need for this. It's talking about mitigating risk, right? And diminishing the level of effort to meet a goal. So there's something organizational here. There's something about what we do in community that we can't do alone. And then need to belong theory. I interpret need to belong theory as kind of belonging on Maslow's hierarchy at the bottom, right? It's right there with air and water and food and shelter. And it's sort of acknowledging, the importance of that, of social bonds, positive social bonds. And it doesn't necessarily say caregiver in this. So we're kind of leaning away from Bowlby, don't tell the IECMH people. But I'm not saying I agree with it. Just kidding. No, I'm saying to you all, like, there's something in this that says that we have a long time to develop. We need this at the beginning of our life. We need it our whole life long. And there's a lot of ways to have this, and that this can change too, which I think is a really beautiful piece of information to float out there. That if those initial attachments weren't strong, we can build them, we can find them, we can have them, and they can sustain us in that way. So there's some really hopefulness in this approach to this way of thinking and feeling. Okay, you ready? We're almost ready to play another game, and we're going to shift now into the social history of connection. Naya put a reminder in the chat that if there's questions specifically for me for the Q&A portion, just make sure you go ahead and send them her way. But I want to talk about social history of connection, and I think it's important for everyone out there for me to just say out loud, I am not an anthropologist. And if you are, you might want to close your eyes for this next activity, because we're gonna hold something that's very complex very lightly, so that we can look at this piece of the work today. So if we go all the way back, we're going to travel back to, kind of the first evidence of human connection and working in groups and all of that. We'll go to hunter-gatherer, and I'm going to put up this little picture of sort of the idea of needing each other for food and shelter and all of those basic needs. We needed each other to live. It was essential for all of us. Once we move to an agrarian society, we have hierarchies that come into place, right? We get more defined jobs. Things get a little clearer in who does what. We have more systems. We might even have some political systems. We have some power that's going to come into place when we move to this. And so that shifts the nature of some of our connections. We're going to float up to industrial. We're skipping through time real fast. Okay, real fast. And this is a big shift in our connection, because not only do we have hierarchy and do we have sort of politics and those pieces, the stratosphere of it. Here in Western culture, we have this rise of industrialization, and we have the rise of individualism. And I don't mean the good kind, like go out there and get it, make your dreams come true. I mean the bad kind, where we shame people and say, you're poor because you deserve to be poor, right? It's that kind of individualism, not the good kind. We have that happen here at this time frame. And this is where we really start to become people who are less interested, right, in community And that will change, like wars will come. Again, remember abbreviated people. But this is a real shift from the way it was done before. And so what would you put in a picture for now, since we're leaping through time by centuries? What would you put here? I'm curious to know. Technology. Thank you, Kathleen. Phones, media, cell phone. Innovative. Barbara, I like that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put some things in there that are a little, that could be hopeful. Technology. Yep, definitely. Space. Oh, I like that, Tammy. Social media. So bad at social media. Yes. Yeah. What fills up this frame? So I thought you might say technology and social media. And so this is also linked in your resources, but Eric Pickersgill, I think that's how you say it. How do you think you say that? Um, he did an installation called Removed, where he took pictures of people kind of engaging in different aspects of their day-to-day life, and then he removed the devices from their hands. I know. So the link in your resources is actually to an article around this installation. And there's a whole variety of images. I just kind of grabbed these four for this slide, but you'll be able to see a little bit um, the different things he captures when he removes that technology from our hands. How do you feel looking at this? Yeah, disconnected. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be connective, Chelsea. I agree with you. And I think, they all look lonely. Yeah, technology can be so connective, right? When we use it for good. You don't necessarily see that in this picture, but it definitely is a piece of it. Missed opportunities. Ah, yeah. Tracy, I am guilty of that. Tracy saying when we wait in line, we don't even put the phone down. I read a book. I have the Kindle app will be my downfall. I'll pull it, I'll wait and I'll read, right? Yes, an app, Christine, I think there's so many people that use social media to connect, right? Yeah, absolutely. And they're not represented in these photos. No, that's not it, but they're there. They matter. Yeah. I hope that you guys do take a look at this, whether you're interested in photography or not. The article that I linked tells a little bit about why he chose to do this too. So you'll get a little sneak peek into the artist's mindset. So while we're sort of thinking about this and feeling about this, hopefully, I wanted to bring up this slide, and this is also included in your resources. So is the entire our Surgeon General, a few Surgeon Generals ago, Vivek Murthy, did a whole epidemic of loneliness. It's a beautiful document. It's very long, but it's wonderful. And there's a bunch of resources on there. And I chose this one specifically to sit with today. I'd like for us, I'm going to watch the clock again. That's my job. Um, I'd like you to think about your own social connection and kind of think about these three aspects of it, starting with structure, the function of it, and the quality of it. If you're like, Jillian, I don't want to think about myself. I don't want to eat my pasta salad and enjoy this. Well, think about someone you believe is really doing this well, someone you admire, who you think has a lot of connection, or think about someone you're worried about. Imagine, imagine how they could learn from thinking about a topic like this. So I won't force you to consider yourself. I hope you take the chance to, but If not, think of a person in the world who matters to you and go ahead and hold a little space for this. I'm going to watch the clock for 1 minute and then did I finish that sentence? And then we get about it. One minute passed. What about this seems most impactful for you? Ah, oof. Yeah, the found family. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Chelsea. Yeah. Yeah, you can be good in function and crappy in those other areas. Absolutely. It's didactic. Changing. Yes. Jasmine's pulling up the beautiful word to look at this and think about it. It does have some things to do with our own development. It does change over our lives, right? Stress, yes, the things that matter to us create stress. What we have capacity for now, we may not later. Absolutely. John's talking about that piece. Let's leave this here, but come back to it in a little bit, okay? Let's float into sort of the changing landscape of connection. And what are the barriers to this? As you sat there and saw sort of how they've broken it down into these three kind of neat little tabs, right? Structure, function, quality. What are the barriers to us doing this well? Trauma, thank you, my ECLC people. Mental health, where you live, geographic distance, yes. Burnout, time, energy, resources, absolutely. Yeah, those are all pieces. I have technology in barriers, Chelsea, but you are also reminding me it needs to go in benefits too. So some of you that were talking about the power of technology for good. Yeah, change, gosh, yes. Family dynamics, yeah, we have a lot of barriers to that. Overcommitted, not enough time. There's a lot of benefits to it, and some of them are very obvious, but some of them feel like things we need our leaders to know. That it improves our physical and emotional health. Yes, we started right out with this, right? It's life and death. But it increases job satisfaction and productivity, builds stronger communities, and it creates opportunities. So there's a lot of things in here that aren't just about, living longer. It's about the quality of our lives together. I want to do a little self-assessment, and I'm going to apologize to Ryan Chappell, our evaluation guru, in response, in just like right now, to say that we're going to do a very gentle evaluation, where I'm just going to ask you to think about yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. I'm going to pop something up there and say 5, almost always, 1, rarely, if at all. Okay. And I am the kind of jerk who would be like 3.6 if I was doing this exercise. So you're doing it for you. I'm not going to ask you to put your answers in there, but let's take a look at each of these. And these are all, I created this assessment, but off a resource that will be linked for all of you. So invest time in nurturing your relationships. What is your success with that? How good are you at that? Going 1 to 5. 5, fabulous. And 1, oof. Raquel's being brave. She's putting her score out there. Yeah. What about participating in social and community groups? This is a little different, right? Okay. How about seeking opportunities to serve and support others? I bet there's a lot of 4s and 5s out there. Yeah. In this group, what about actively engaging with people who have different backgrounds and experiences? Allison gave herself an 8. That's not even on the chart. I love it. Yeah. It's an imaginary scale. You go ahead and give yourself other scores. Being responsive and supportive and practicing gratitude. It's fun to put the 5s in, isn't it? Yeah. I admire you all who end up putting those other numbers in there. Here's one to sort of ask you to sit again. We're back to that sitting slide for a second. How about reducing practices that lead to feelings of disconnection? This can be hard for so many reasons that we don't have time to talk about today. But yeah, I'm sending big hearts out to all of you. This is a big one. Seeking help in times of struggle. 1 to 5. -3. I did say you could use imaginary numbers. Sure, yeah. 3.5. Yes, I would be using those point markers. I've gotten better at asking for help in some ways as I've gotten older and worse in others. So, okay. Being open with your doctor or healthcare provider, telling them the truth when you're in those spaces. So let's, yeah. Let's take just a quick moment. I want you to notice just one of these things that you would like to be different. Is there a 2 or a 1 or a 2.5 or a 3.5? Heck, maybe you want a 4 to be a 5. Is there any one of these numbers that you would like to change? I know what mine is. Yeah. Hold on to that one thing you'd like to change. Maybe you write it down. One aspect that you think, oof, I would like this number to grow. And I'll remind you that change is a process, like grief, like learning, like development, like coping. And when we're all born without a guarantee of time. You know, babies don't come with an expiration date. We don't know how long we have. But this topic asks us to really think about the quality of the time we are given. and how we can really invest in each other in ways that improve so many places for so many of us. And so, whatever number you chose, be really gentle with yourself, but ask yourself, what would my life look like if I had a 5 in this number? A little humanism, a little miracle question in there. And I wonder if there's a catalyst for change we can activate today inside ourselves. That being said, I want you all to see each other a little bit more. And I want you to feel sort of that ripple effect that comes with connection, because it does. It sort of grows exponentially. And Naya created a little Mentimeter that hopefully you can click on. I just click. I'm always a little embarrassed when I do things on here that I do alone with my computer. Tick, 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 tick. That you can click on, and it will take you to the Mentimeter, and it's also in the chat. She did that for me too, so I can pull it up and share it with you. I'm pulling it up, and then I'm going to pull it over so you can all see it. Oh, I get to enter a word. The question in this Mentimeter is, where do you go to find connection? And Naya gets credit for this question. I was wrestling with a whole bunch of them, but I really like this one, and I'm grateful Naya suggested it because it gives us a sense of action. And I think we really need that before we say goodbye today. So where are we going to go? All right, I'm going to submit it, and then I'm going to show you. I did. Okay. Oh, Naya, it won't let me do it. I gotta keep going. Hold on. I can't see it. There we go. You ready to see how you did? Oh, look at this. Someone was talking about found family. Look how big Friends is in there. Work, reading a book. Yep, I'm with you. Dog park. Oh, make plans. Facebook. Yeah, Facebook can be a force of good. My mother uses it mostly to wish people happy birthday. That's what I see her using Facebook for, and that's pretty awesome. Oh, look at that, a place of worship. Yeah, LGBTQ center. Absolutely. The places we go to find connection. We are almost done. We have just, it looks like maybe have a little bit of time for Q&A. Can you see my slides again? People are loving Racket Lake. I don't know where that is. Yes, cool. Okay. Look at how I did that successfully. So our need for connection and community is primal, as fundamental as the need for air, water, and food. And I want to say to all of you, if you agree with this or not, I don't think is the point. But I want you to carry with you what it means for you. And really think as you are taking a moment, like I said, after I've disappeared into the mist, what you want to do. Whether it's to improve your assessment or to make a connection you haven't made before. I don't know how this is going to grow, but thinking about it is something essential. Maybe not life and death, but something really essential is really the message today. Here are our objectives. I think we did it, right? I think we did it. at least to the best of our ability in this amount of time. There's obviously a lot more places we could travel to together. And so before we get into Q&A, I always want to end with a thank you. This is a picture of a place I love, outside the window of where I was with that baby at the beginning. And my email is there. So if you're having conversations around this topic, please invite me to join you. I'd love to be with you all and go deeper, go further, hear your voices and see your faces. But mostly I want to say thank you for sharing time and space and joining the incredible Learning Cafe community. And go into that world, be good to yourselves, be good to others. And I'm going to stay for the next 12 minutes in case there's any Q&A. Did I time it right? Oh, thank you, everybody. I'm asking Naya, did I time it right? 12 minutes? How'd I do?
That was wonderful, Jillian. I think one question and something I know I'm curious about that I think I saw a lot of other people had in common. A lot of people seem to struggle with reducing practices that lead to feelings of disconnection and seeking help when they need it. Do you have any suggestions for us on how to maybe make that process easier or help us be more proactive about our own needs?
Yeah, so one of my favorite resources, we've been sharing a lot in the trauma advisory group. So a plug for that little organization. But we know what kind of the antidote, right, is to trauma and to stress. And some of them are really more simple than you imagine. So it's like focusing on sleep, focusing on nutrition, but focusing on mindfulness. I'm going to pull up the article, or I can have Naya send it too. We've been talking about the toolkit for how we reduce stress. Stress is what prevents us from connecting, among with a variety of other things. But what we know is that when we can decrease stress, when that vagus nerve and that parasympathetic nervous system are online, our mirror neurons are working, and we seek connection. And so it's really kind of treating the whole person and at the same time really noticing where we need the most support in that physical and emotional well-being place. And some of us have different needs, right? Based on our experiences, based on our genetics, all sorts of things. But there are some like 6 standards or 7 standards that we can go back to and think about.
Mhm. Wonderful. Another question we had come up, as adults, I think a thing I hear a lot about is that it's hard to make friends. It's hard to meet people. It's hard to make new connections once you have all the sort of life pressures happening to you. Um, what do you think adults can do to try to connect in ways that they can sort of fit into the busy lives they already have now?
So now we get to talk about a couple of really cool things. Most of what we've noticed today is that people are interacting less with their community than ever before. But there are some real hubs in your community, and I'll use the library as an example here in Steuben County. And it's not just because I'm a book lover, but it's also because they run a ton of free programming and they run book studies. They run, I don't know, they run game nights, they run free movie nights, they run ice cream socials. But I will say, if you decide to do something, Ryan's hitting on it, pick a place and show up consistently. And I'm going to say the library, but it can be any place you really want to return to, and that you think you can do. If travel's an issue for you, maybe you need an online way to connect. Maybe you use technology for good and set up a Zoom happy hour or a coffee and conversation. It's hard to initiate that, but I think what people learn is once they put themselves out there, or if they pick a friend to do it together, the group will grow. So go ahead, pick a place, show up consistently. Yep. And let it be a place where you have some level of comfortability already. We did this in COVID virtually really well. A bunch of people got really creative. So if distance or travel is a barrier, yeah, that's a way to do that. But otherwise, check those community, get on your community web pages. They're bad, those community web pages. There's no funding for those. So you got to really be ready to click, but it's worth it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Speaking of the pandemic, we know that that was a very isolating time for a lot of people, especially for children. It was a huge shift. Um, what have you sort of seen or noticed that's different in how children connect or what they need now in this sort of different world?
I think we just need 6 or 8 more hours to unpack that. Maybe days.
It's a big question.
It's a big
Yeah.
question. Any of us who worked with children prior to the pandemic and then after the pandemic noticed that it's obviously the social emotional domain that suffered the most. Although I've had conversations with physical therapists and OTs and SLPs that say no, development, arrested development is an issue for a whole variety of reasons. We also know that a lot of things that are bad increased during COVID. Domestic violence increased, child abuse increased. And so we have trauma that we need to address, and having trauma informed lenses is really important right now. And not just for the children during the pandemic, for everybody. So I think recognizing that we have some gaps that are going to impact this generation in a really foundational way, and approaching that with a strength-based, relationship-based perspective is really important. But that's all I can say without 6 to 8 hours.
Understandable. It's a big topic, and I'm sure all of us could talk about it for a very
Yeah, I
long
know.
time.
I feel like I want to ask all of you. I don't, that's the, um, anything else, Laura? How'd we do?
It was wonderful, Jillian.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. This was my first time getting to see you present, and it was wonderful. I really connected with the topic. If there was just one thing
Yep.
that people took from this time together today, what would you want that to be?
I would want that to be that connection matters. And it doesn't have to be in a group or a community setting. It can be your small group. Ryan says consistently showing up. Choose those people you're going to consistently show up for. Recognize the symptoms of loneliness in others. So I
Mm.
think go ahead and really extend empathy and compassion when you see those who are isolated. And if you have capacity, threshold, reach out and be a point of connection in a small way. Um, so I'll stick with my usual standard. Be good to yourself, and feed those relationships that are important to you to the best of your ability with a lot of gentleness. And then if you see loneliness around you, go ahead and open yourself in whatever way you have. Maybe it's a smile, maybe it's a how are you, um, whatever it might be, to to be an antidote to that and others. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jillian. I think that was a beautiful summation of our time together today. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone in our audience for joining us today. Um, I'm not sure if everyone saw, but as Allison mentioned in the chat, if you're interested in learning more about the trauma advisory group, you can send Jillian an email and we can give you some more information about that. And again, we appreciate all of you coming and really jumping in and participating in this process so much. So thank you.
bye, everybody.